How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Marco here, and I am breaking down 4 Dynasty running backs that you need to buy right now. Before we jump into anything, I want to remind you, Patreon is happening. We've got rookie rankings. They're tiered, and we've already given our first update to them. We've got Dynasty tiered rankings, positional rankings, overall rankings, everything you could possibly imagine available at our Patreon account. If you want a 14-piece sticker to throw on your laptop or your water bottle or whatever that might be, you can get that no matter what you do. Head over to Patreon today. Go ahead. You could either support us for $2 just so we can continue to do this. For $5 a month, you can get all of the things I just talked about. And then I think for 1 tier more, you get the sticker and a couple other things. So make sure to subscribe to our Patreon. We are going to be releasing all kinds of new content during the season, during the off season, everything you can imagine. So head to patreon.com/14personnel and then subscribe to our YouTube channel, wherever you're watching this. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do so. You hit the bell. We are releasing videos basically every day at this point. We might, slow down a little bit in the coming months until we get, some actual combine things and draft things. But right now we're releasing basically every day, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime in the near future. So we've got lots of content for you, and we've got a lot of stuff already planned coming up in the next little bit here. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Marco_14P or follow 14P at 14P_fantasy. All right, that's all the other stuff. Now let's jump into the running backs. All right, number 1 running back that you need to buy right now, and there's been some questions about him right now. Is he the long-term answer there? Is he not? I'm here to answer your questions on Elijah Mitchell. He's 23 years old. He was the rookie phenom, the rookie breakout, and he was basically what everyone was looking for. Who's the James Robinson of this year? Who's the James Robinson of this year? It was Elijah Mitchell. And a lot of people thought early, oh, maybe you spent too much on Fab. You shouldn't have bought him. Or, hey, I spent Fab on him because I think he's going to be the guy. He put all of those debates to rest because he showed us that he is a stud. The 49ers use him as a stud, as their workhorse. He really put all of those debates just to rest. He did deal with some injuries, but he's a running back. All running backs deal with some sort of injury at some point. And so I'm not really worried too much about the injuries and kind of him getting beat up with his shoulder and his ribs. Heading into 2022 and beyond, I think that Elijah Mitchell is a dynasty buy. He's an asset you need to buy, and you need to buy him now before people really buy into the fact that he could be the long-term answer. Don't let the whole Shanahan never uses a running back in back-to-back seasons narrative detract you from buying Elijah Mitchell. Find the guy who has Elijah Mitchell who believes that and go buy Elijah Mitchell for cheaper than he should be available for, because he is a huge buy. His 16-game pace for fantasy football was 1,600 total yards, 9 touchdowns, and 333 touches. 333 touches. That is would have ranked like 6th in the league this year for running backs. So he is one of the guys you need to get your hands on. I've got some trade opportunity or some trade options for you if you're looking, hey, what could I buy him for? I think if you have pick 107 in your rookie drafts or lower for 2022, I would sell those picks straight up for Elijah Mitchell. If someone's willing to take the 107 for him. And I know you might think, well, there's tons of options in the rookie drafts. There's so much potential. This draft is good, but especially if you need a running back, the top couple guys at running back, the top, I think 3 are the ones that I really think have long-term staying power in the NFL and consistent long-term workhorse ability staying power. There might be a couple, sleepers that sneak in there, Rashad White's maybe. But still, right now, there's 3 that I really, really believe in and trust. So outside of the 105, the top 5 picks, that's kind of my first tier break. If you have the 106, maybe some guy falls to you. So that's why I'm kind of holding that. 107 and below, I'm okay trading for Elijah Mitchell straight up, because I truly believe, and I know Justin does too, that Elijah Mitchell is going to be a dynasty asset. I would also trade Hollywood Brown. I talked about him and my wide receivers to trade away. He saw obviously great production this year, but he's another guy who probably isn't going to see the targets that he saw last year, not just because of the offense, but because Rashad Bateman will probably have his big step forward next year. And his emergence could definitely hurt Hollywood Brown, the number 2 pass catcher on that team, Mark Andrews and whatever wide receiver. has not been consistent this year. Obviously, there's quarterback questions, but that's probably going to continue. Add J.K. Dobbins, add Gus Edwards. Hollywood Brown, I'm okay selling, especially straight up if you can get Elijah Mitchell for him. I would do that for sure. Jerry Jeudy's a guy who has a ton of potential. There's a lot of questions about who their quarterback's going to be. So this one could backfire a little bit if he does get like an Aaron Rodgers, but that is far from a done deal. And so right now I'm okay trading Jerry Jeudy for Elijah Mitchell. I know not everyone might be excited about that, but I think right now what you're looking at is if you're a contender or if you're like a running back or two potential positions away, Elijah Mitchell is a guy who you can put in your team and he's a plug and play. He is going to see the volume at the very least to make him a very week in and week out starter at running back. And even beyond volume, he's a very good player. I mean, he showed us that already. And then another one is Hunter Renfrow and like a 2022 second. I would throw that at the Elijah Mitchell owner, see if you can do that. Hunter Renfrow, he ended as like the PPR wide receiver 11. I don't buy into Hunter Renfrow consistently being a top 12 wide receiver. He's going to be a wide receiver too, probably in PPR. But I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Derek Carr and who knows what's going to happen with the head coach there. So I think Hunter Renfrow right now, he's not a sell necessarily, but he's not a huge guy that I believe in for the long term for Dynasty. And even for 2022, I think Elijah Mitchell's got much more value to me than a Hunter Renfrow does. And if you want to throw in a second just to get the deal done, do it. All right, so let's jump into my next guy on the list. He's one of my favorites as well, and that is A.J. Dillon. He is 23. I've talked about A.J. Dillon quite a bit, and excuse me, really when it comes to A.J. Dillon, he's the number 2 running back on a team that had Aaron Rodgers. We don't know if he's going to come back or not, and you're like, well, is he going to get enough work? In 2021, he saw 221 touches or 221 opportunities, I think. And that is with Aaron Jones. Obviously, Aaron Jones missed some time. But if you even look at the type of touches he's getting red zone looks. He's actually getting a decent amount of receptions, like not Aaron Jones level of receptions or targets, but he's still getting some targets. And for a guy like him to be getting any targets, that's a plus. I mean, because no one was expecting him to get a lot of targets. But he's really getting a lot of the red zone work, the goal line work. Aaron Jones, in his first 10 games, before he got injured, he scored 5 touchdowns. 3 of them were rushing, right? A.J. Dillon scored 3 in that time, and 2 of them were rushing. So it's not like Aaron Jones was like getting all of that work, even though he was the one. A.J. Dillon was getting involved. So even if Aaron Jones is still there for a little while, the Packers have an out on Aaron Jones after 2022 and not really losing money. I'm not sure if they're going to do it, but Aaron Jones is 27 this year. He dealt with, he's going to be 27, 28. He dealt with injury. That's not something that's new to him. He's a running back. Like I said earlier, running backs deal with injuries. So I think that A.J. Dillon, even if they keep Aaron Jones beyond 2022, A.J. Dillon's locked in as a running back too. And if they do decide to move on from Aaron Jones after 2022, he is going to excuse me, he is going to compete for a top 12 running back spot in 2023. I really believe that. And if Aaron Jones stays and doesn't stay healthy, he has to rest, or maybe they give him a lighter workload to make sure that he does have longevity for this team. A.J. Dillon is going to take a lot of the early down work. He's going to probably take a lot of the red zone and goal line opportunities. So I think whatever happens with Aaron Jones is kind of irrelevant to why you should go buy A.J. Dillon. I think A.J. Dillon for the next 3 to 4 years is an RB2 with RB1 upside, week in and week out, depending on what's going to happen there. And then if Aaron Rodgers leaves, even more of a bump to A.J. Dillon, because they're going to have to run the ball, because no matter what you think of Jordan Love, he's nowhere near Aaron Rodgers. And so I think A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones will be a good tandem. And if Aaron Jones leaves, it'll be A.J. Dillon and Kylan Hill. And I think Kylan Hill's a really deep buy as well, but I'm going to let you guys wait on him, because I think A.J. Dillon's the guy you got to go buy right now before his price goes up anymore. All right, this is a weird one. This is James Conner. So, you know what? I forgot to tell you A.J. Dillon, what I would trade for A.J. Dillon. Kadarius Toney. I would trade him straight up for A.J. Dillon. We didn't see a ton from Kadarius Toney. He was in my wide receivers to sell list as well. He was one of the guys who I just wasn't impressed by in the offseason. During the season, he had a couple games where he saw tons and tons of targets. And I think that's going to change. We don't know what's going to happen there with head coach. We don't know what's going to happen there with GM or in the draft or free agency. But I think Saquon Barkley is going to probably continue to get back We don't know 100%, but I think he will get back a little bit better. And I think some wide receiver help, any wide receivers they add in free agency will help. And I think Kadarius Toney's not a guy who's going to see 10 to 12 targets a game. And he kind of needed that to be a breakout superstar. So I'm okay trading him right now for A.J. Dillon, who's a running back, who's seeing work, who's going to play each and every week and do well most weeks right now. I'm okay trading Kadarius Toney. And then if you want to add a Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins to that, I think that would get the deal done as well. Trading pick 109 in your rookie drafts or lower for A.J. Dillon is a move I would look at for draft picks. Or a guy like Leonard Fournette and a 2022 second, because we don't know exactly what's going to go on with Leonard Fournette. And again, he's another guy who has kind of had a resurgence, but he's a little bit older. And I think, especially in Dynasty, you want to sell the year before it's over. And so I think Leonard Fournette might be hard to sell like that. So if you throw in Fournette and a 22 second for A.J. Dillon, I'm all about it. All right. Now let's go back to James Conner. So James Conner, he's 26. He seems like he should be like almost 30 at this point. But he finishes the RB5 in 2021. He saw 239 touches. 74% of his games he finished with double-digit fantasy points, and 60% of those games, or all of his games, he scored 15 or more fantasy points. I think that James Conner is a guy who people are probably going to try to play a little bit of hot potato with, like, he's going to fall off the cliff soon, and he very well might. 15 touchdowns on the season. I don't think that's 100% repeatable. And he's a free agent. I do think he goes back to the Arizona Cardinals, but even if he doesn't, the goal line back is the role that he will play no matter where he goes, pretty much. And so I think he's gonna probably, as long as he can stay healthy, which is another question for him, but if he can stay healthy, he's a 8 to 12 touchdown guy. And I think no matter where he goes, he's gonna go try to play for a contender. Like I said, I think he's coming back to the Cardinals, but even if he doesn't, he lands with a contender, and I think he could be not RB5, but he definitely could be an RB2 with RB1 upside, especially if he does get, a lot of those goal line, those valuable touches. Guys, I would trade for him. Allen Robinson. I still kind of believe in Allen Robinson for maybe another year or two, but we don't know for sure. He's going to be on a new team. He's going to be a new quarterback, new situation. I'm okay moving on from Allen Robinson for a guy like James Conner if you need a running back. Van Jefferson's another guy I'm okay moving on from. If you want to trade Van Jefferson and a 2022 second for James Conner, I bet you could. You might be able to even just offer Van Jefferson as a starting point and see if they buy, because like I said, people are probably wanting to move on from James Conner, even though he finished so well in 2021, because he's one of those guys who nobody's really excited to hold on to. So if you can kind of lowball your first offer and then go from there. So I would offer Van Jefferson, but I would be okay doing Van Jefferson and a 2022 second for James Conner. You lose some of the potential with the 2022 second, but you get a guy who's probably going to get work early and often with whatever team he does land on. And then if you're looking for just trade-in picks, any pick after the 204 in the 2022 draft, I'm okay trading straight up for James Conner. If you want to package a couple seconds for James Conner because you're competing now and you need a running back, I'm okay with that as well. All right, the final guy I want to talk about is the priciest for sure. It's Travis Etienne. He is coming back from Lisfranc foot surgery, and he is one of those guys who was one of the top prospects coming out last year. I had him as my running back too. I had Najee, Etienne, Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams showed that he's an absolute stud, so maybe Williams is ahead of Etienne, and a lot of people probably have him that way right now. We haven't seen Etienne play yet, though, so I think Etienne is a guy who could definitely see, or we could see what Javonte Williams did, and Etienne could surpass that. I'm not saying it's a for sure thing because, again, Javonte Williams balled out. He looked phenomenal in 2021. But Etienne has that kind of potential, and people probably aren't holding on to him thinking he's Javonte Williams yet because of what Javonte did in 2021. So I think right now, when you look at their situation, James Robinson, he tore the Achilles in the late season. Don't look at Cam Akers' situation as, oh, he's going to come back sooner than people think. Cam Akers was the exception. He was not the rule. So do not expect Cam Akers for James Robinson. I think that James Robinson is probably going to come back middle of the season, maybe a little bit earlier, but he's not going to be the workhorse, bulky bowling ball guy right away. He's going to have to take some time. And I think beyond 2022, Travis Etienne is going to be the guy. I think James Robinson will probably move on from the Jaguars after 2022. I think that's when he becomes a free agent. And we don't know the coaching staff yet, but Travis Etienne is going to have to be the engine to this offense, the motor to the offense, and he's going to probably inherit 250 plus touches. So no matter what happens with Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to be a good quarterback still. I think he's going to be a great quarterback still. We just need the coaching staff to kind of get right. Even if he does that, I think that means that Travis Etienne is still one of those guys who's going to see 250 to 300 touches in his second season in the NFL, coming back from this injury. And if he does, he is going to blow some people away. He is one of the most explosive, exciting running backs, I think, in his age range in the NFL, and he's a guy you got to buy. So I said, you're going to have to pay a little bit more for him. Here are some of the things I'd be okay trading for him. Elijah Moore. I love Elijah Moore. But if you are desperate at running back and say this a team that has Etienne is desperate at wide receiver, offer Elijah Moore, see what they come back with. If they take it, great. If not, I don't want to throw a 2022 second at it, but I would throw a couple of 2022 thirds. I would throw a 2023 second in with Elijah Moore. That's probably my limit, just because I do really, really believe in Elijah Moore. But Travis Etienne could be special. If you are looking okay at tight end and you don't need to hold on to a George Kittle, or maybe the Etienne owner has like a Mike Gesicki, who could end up with the Chargers and Justin Herbert and be a freak, or Mike Gesicki anywhere is probably going to be a very serviceable tight end, even if he comes back to Miami. I would trade George Kittle and a 2022 second for Etienne and a Gesicki type tight end. So you could make tight end work, but you'd really get an enormous asset at running back in a Travis Etienne. And then finally, if you've got Aaron Jones, I talked about him briefly earlier. I will okay trading Aaron Jones for Travis Etienne and a 2022 second right now. No questions asked. I think Jones is on the decline. Etienne, we haven't even seen him yet, so I'm really excited about him. All right, guys, I know this was a little bit longer. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for hanging out. If you got questions, drop them below. Hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. We'll see you next time. Peace.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.